wind hold, and then you're going to use your inclination, and you're going to have to bracket it, if that makes sense.
Hello, welcome to the Gun Shop with me, John. Today we're going to be giving you a small video from the guys up at Sig Sauer. We went up to a range day for the release of the new BDX in the UK, which is their new Rangefinder scope, Ballistic Data Exchange technology. You have a rangefinder and a scope and they speak to each other, and it's amazing. The first part of this video that you miss essentially says that they were going to build one with a built-in rangefinder, but they didn't like it because you couldn't make it look like a scope and, you know, make it affordable. And as such, here you go. Use this video as a great intro to the scope, and if you've bought one, it's a great intro of how to use the thing. So, enjoy.
We decided to kind of separate the rangefinder and the rifle scope and just use Bluetooth technology, which is getting better and better every year. And we're pretty happy with our product. So what we have is a rangefinder that has built-in ballistic solvers into it. It's a fairly simple ballistic solver to set up and use, and then it will port all of that information over to your your rifle scope and give you an illuminated holdover dot for whatever distance you are shooting. So if you go out to 500 meters and range a target, it will give you this ballistic solution for that, and all you have to do is put that dot on the target and pull the trigger. So that's kind of how the system works. It's a it sounds a lot more complicated than it really is. We really wanted to kind of simplify it. So we'll kind of walk you guys through some of the different features and benefits and how everything works here. 30 millimeter main tube. This looks just like a rifle scope. If I didn't tell you it has our BDX system in there, you probably wouldn't notice. The only thing that might be different is on the bottom we have this glass-filled nylon plate. That's because that's where our Bluetooth antenna is. If we had a complete metal plate down there, it would have really limited our Bluetooth range. So luckily for us, that's a very protected part of the scope once it's mounted to a rifle down over the extractor of the bolt. So that's where our antenna is. And then the only thing that's really different is we have a very fancy OLED reticle inside of this, and it has 78 holdover dots on the vertical stadia. So there's 78 different dots that can illuminate to give you the most accurate ballistic solution. And we also have 18 dots on the horizontal stadia to give you a wind correction. So inside the app you can just put in, I got a 10 mile an hour wind hold, and it will give you 2 dots, and you can use those as your holding features for windage as well. So this is our Bdx app. We've kind of stepped it up.
What they've got if they want, so they can.
Yeah, you guys can open it up. You can't go into the rangefinder or the site page unless you're paired to one. That was just to make actually the system a little bit more robust. We were getting some weirdness if we had it where you could go into it. So, but what we've kind of done here is they're kind of set up in the order that you need to go in. The first thing you need to do is pair. After that, you got to create a ballistic profile for the gun you're shooting, and then you get into the rangefinder and go. But I'll show you the pairing sequence right here. So once you open it up, right now I can scan for devices that are on. Oh, now it's scanning, and it shows up 2 devices are on. Earlier today we had 4 devices for each because we were all setting up these rifles. But just for demos, we'll show you this. So all you got to do, the Kilo 2400 BDX, and then it says -174031. That goes off the serial number onto your rangefinder. We wanted to have it so that you physically had to have the rangefinder or the rifle scope in your hands in order to pair to it or bond to it, and that way you're not standing on a range and someone's connecting to yours.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah, either on purpose or accidentally. So. So what happens is you'll press select. Now it's going out and it's trying to, it'll set a pin. So if I look in here it says pin 13 or pin 31.
Yep.
So all you do is go in there where it says pin code entry, hit 31.
Yep.
I'm going to hit OK. And now it says correct pin code entered, and I'm paired to that. So I can control it, I can get into it, I can change all the settings in it. once I paired a rifle scope, I can bond that to a rifle scope, and off we go. So for the rifle scope, the way that you you connect to it, it says to confirm that brightness setting. To confirm this is your sight, turn on the brightness setting on your sight to 2 and press OK. So right now it's on 10. You got to make a change to it. So you go to 2, you press OK, and it says your sight is now unlocked. So I'm paired to this sight. If I go in here and look at underneath the sight, it says check bonding. I hit that, it's going and looking, and it's come back on mine and it says not bonded. So all I have to do is press bond devices, and now it says bonded. So now this rangefinder is paired and bonded to this rifle scope. And really that's all to it as far as connecting the two devices. I could unpair this from this rifle scope and put it onto a different scope if you want to use a different gun. You'll need the app to do that, but after that you don't need this this app. The app is only used to configure the two devices. So if you want to change settings in it, if you want to change your ballistics in it, you need the app to do that. It just makes it a lot more simple than having
We now go to pairing.
50,000 different button presses on a or its own display or something on the rangefinder or on the rifle scope. So now that I've bonded and paired the two devices, I'll go into profiles, and you'll see I have a bunch of different profiles in here for other rifles and stuff I have at home. But we can create a new one. So in order to create a new profile, up in the upper right hand corner, you just press new profile. And you guys can all do this in yours as we go. I'm American, so we'll do a 30-06 because you know we love those. So bullet library, I will go up to the 30 caliber bullet, so the .308. Click on that. We'll shoot a Hornady bullet because that's what we're shooting today. And let's say we shoot 195 ELDM. So now the app has taken that bullet and it has inputted all of the parameters that you need for that in there. So it has a .308 bullet, bullet weight is 195, ballistic coefficient is .308, and that's a G7 ballistic coefficient. If you guys are shooting flat base bullets, so like a nozzle or partition, you would want to use a G1 ballistic coefficient. But for boat tails, you want to use a G7. Next thing, you'll need your muzzle velocity. So you can do that in a couple different ways. You can either shoot it over a chronograph. So if you have a chronograph, it's pretty easy. Set it up, shoot 10 rounds over a chronograph, average them out, enter that in. If you don't have a chronograph, you can take what's off the box and start from there, and then there's a calibration sequence that we can show you guys later on. But essentially for the calibration, you will zero your rifle at 100 yards, and then you'll have to go back past 300 yards at a range and shoot at another target. And if you're high or low, you can input that, and then it will correct your muzzle velocity based off of that. The rifle scope is a second focal plane rifle scope, and you're going to zero it at 100 meters or 100 yards is usually the best because all of your drops either in front of or behind your 100 yard or 100 meter zero are going to be below your horizontal stadium. So they're all negative. If you zeroed at 50 yards, you're at 100 yards, you might be an inch or two high. So
the scope's capable of that though if you wanted to.
Yeah, you can do that. The only thing is if you have a hold over your crosshair, there's not an LED up there. So it will just illuminate the center crosshair. Yeah, but in most instances you wouldn't. It shouldn't affect you too much. When you are zeroing it, range what target you are because you can input 99 yards, you can input 101 yards, it's whatever you input. And it's going to do all the corrections based off of that.
Reticle's in second focal plane.
Yes.
I assume the dot for the holdover is first focal plane, so it's regardless of magnification, it's
So the dot is in the second focal plane. The scope, however, knows what magnification it's on,
Right,
on the
okay.
power select ring.
Great.
So if you move it, and you guys can see this when you're shooting later on,
Yeah.
as you go down in power, the dot's going to come up.
Yeah.
As you go up in power, the dot's going to drop down.
Magic.
So yeah, we call it the digital focal plane.
Good.
Yeah, because it's a second focal plane scope. but it acts as a free.
One little cool thing was shooting 2D3 out at 400 yards, and on maximum power, it was saying that you don't have the field of view.
Yeah.
Drop field of view back. So the dot was flashing, going, you can't pair this. It's not. It's telling us out.
Yeah.
Drop the mag back to 10 power, and then it showed because it then improved your field of view. Move that reticle. Yeah. So it just thinks all that's pretty.
Which is really cool. Really cool. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's so we'll save that bullet profile. It will pop up and it will tell you a kind of a warning or a notice that if you make a change to a profile, it doesn't sync with your rangefinder until you go back into your rangefinder page so that the app can sync to your rangefinder. So if I'm sitting here and I have a rangefinder back in Portland, Oregon, where I live, just because I make a change here, it doesn't sync to my rangefinder. You have to connect to it for it to sync. So, but back to your questions about doing it in meters. Yes, absolutely. If you go into our settings page, on this main page, the settings page is up in that gear in the upper right-hand corner. There's all types of different settings you can do, and these are global, so they will go across all of the app. It will go into the rangefinder and also the rifle scope. So range units, you can set it to meters. Wind speed, you can do miles per hour, kilometers, meters per second. Muzzle velocity, you can do feet per second, meters per second. Bullet diameter, you can do inches or centimeters. Bullet weight, you can do grains, grams. Temperature, obviously Fahrenheit, Celsius. Altitude is feet or I think meters, yeah. And then sight units is MOA or MRAD. So, and the scope, the adjustments in the scope are all quarter minute adjustments. You're only using those to zero the rifle though. Once you're done with that, you can set it to milliradians if you want, and if that's what you're more comfortable with using. And really, for the scope, that's only going to come into play if you're using a ballistic reticle and want to do it in MRAD. So for the rangefinder, you can set it to milliradians, and if you don't have one on our scopes, you could range something. It will give you the ballistic solution in milliradians. You can dial your scope. So you forgot to put batteries in your scope or something. You can range and still dial this in MOA based off of what your rangefinder gives you, and it's going to work just like any other rifle scope. So going into rangefinders, turn it on. This is kind of our HUD for the rangefinder. I'm going to go. If you look at elevation there, I'll range something. So there's about 600 meters. The ballistic solution for 600 meters is 21 MOA, 21.55 MOA. And with the wind value that we have in here, 6 miles per hour, it's about a 4.3 MOA hold. Other features that you'll see in here, it says velocity. That is at the target distance. So this round is leaving the barrel at 2560, and at the target, 600 meters away, it's going to be traveling 1359 feet per second. It also gives you energy. And that goes into play with something I'll talk about on the rifle scope here in a second. When you're in this page, you can go in and change your muzzle velocity, your ballistic coefficient, all that stuff. But for the most part, you don't need to. Temperature, I can ping this, and it will go out and grab the closest weather station, and it will come back and tell me what my temperature is. If, let's say, I'm not too close to the closest temperature or weather station, you can just click on it and hard input into it. That 5.0, what you're seeing is that was the angle of what I was ranging at over there as well. So, just to go into settings real quickly and show you what we got in there. Rangefinder mode, we have 4 different modes for this rangefinder. We have AMR, which is angle modified range. We have LOS, which is just line of sight. Do you guys know the difference between the two? It's essentially using trig for bullet distance as opposed to line of sight distance. Then we have ABU. That's the mode you're going to want to be in if you have one of our rifle scopes and you want them to communicate. It stands for Applied Ballistics Ultralight, which is the ballistic solver that we use for these. And then this rangefinder, the 2400 BDX, as well as the 3000, which is a binocular that we'll have out in early next year. They have ABX or ABE, and what that allows you to do is go out and talk to a Kestrel. So if you have a Kestrel that has the full Applied Ballistics suite, and then you're not range limited. So on our Applied Ballistics Ultralight, because you're only inputting temperature and altitude, and not all the other environmental features, you're limited to 800 yards. If people are competition shooters and want to shoot further than that, this wouldn't give you the ballistic solution past 800 yards. It will still range past there, but it won't give you a ballistic solution. It will just come back as 0-0. If you set up a ballistic profile on your Kestrel and you pair to this, it will go out as far as you can range. So I can range something at 2,500 meters, and it will tell me I got a 50 MRAD hold or something on it, you know, depending on what I'm shooting. You might need some crazy canted rail, or it's like a howitzer. But reticle mode, so our 2400 and our 2200 have different reticle options. You can do the regular circle, or you can do milling features on the horizontal, or a horizontal and a vertical. And they're 5 mil increments is what the milling features are. Not really a problem here when it's so wide open, but if you're looking maybe into a forest, you might see a big prominent yellow tree versus all the other green trees. You can say, oh, it's about 2 milliradians or 5 milliradians to the right of that yellow tree. And then it might help the shooter get on target a little bit better. So, like I was saying earlier, we wanted the system to be able to work, obviously combined. We want people to get the scope and the rangefinder. That's ideal. But both of these units can be used separately and independently, and they both have unique features compared to the competition. Obviously, the rangefinder ballistics, you can range, it will give you your MRAD holds, your MOA holds, and you can just dial your scope if you have some other scope. The rifle scope, if you don't have our rangefinder, you can do a custom BDC reticle in here, and it will match exactly to your the ballistics in your scope or in your rifle, as opposed to choosing from one of 3 ballistic options for a fixed reticle. So in order to configure that, you would go into the sights page. So now it's connected. If you look through there, you will see that there are multiple dots lit up. And you can turn those on, you can turn them off. I can do meters, I can do yards. So I'll turn off the 200 yard, 400 yard, so on and so forth. That is the digital ballistic reticle. So if you don't have one of our rangefinders and you're just going to buy the rifle scope, this allows you to go out with your other existing rangefinder. You can range something at 200 meters and use your 200 meter dot. So it's kind of a nice feature, and it's really the only product on the market that's a true ballistic reticle. Everything else, when you have either a glass etch reticle or a wire reticle, it's only accurate for one snapshot in time. It's accurate for that rifle using that ammunition in those environmental settings that you've inputted. So if you change any of those characteristics, it could be off. It could be close, but it will likely be off. So, and we call this the digital ballistic reticle. What we've talked about is the ballistic holds. You can also do fixed holds. So if you just want a 5 MOA, it's 10 MOA, and a 20 MOA dot, you can put that in there. You can do it in milliradians as well. In the US, we have muzzleloader hunters, we have crossbow hunters, and they can go in there and use that type of calculation to do holds for them.
So the theory is you can design your own reticle in theory.
Yeah.
Your own holdover.
Yes, exactly. It's infinitely configurable, essentially.
What's the runtime battery on both scope and rangefinder?
Rangefinder is no change from previous. I think it's about 9,000 ranges. Rifle scope's about 100 hours continuous.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you go into the
within
site settings page, you can select all these different options. MOTAC is a motion activated turn-off feature. So that's like if you put it in your safe and walk away, after you can set it to 5 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you want to set it, and it'll automatically turn off. And then we also have what we call a hard timeout. That's if I'm out hunting, I think I'm going to take a shot, I decide not to, I sling my rifle and I forget to turn my scope off. It will turn off after 30 minutes. You can set it to 2 hours, 4 hours, however long you want it to be. If it does time out, all you have to do is turn the power select ring, turn the illumination dial one motion at all. Any sort of electronic input into it, it will fire back up and be ready to go. In the site settings page, we have a feature inside this site that I didn't talk about yet. It's called Level Plex. It's a digital anti-cant system inside of the reticle. So on the very edge of your field of view at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, there's little arrows. So if your rifle system's canted, it will let you know, and you can bring it back up to level, which is not as important 300 yards and in, but as you start getting out to further distances, it can really affect your windage hold, essentially. If you can't ride it, you're going to end up a little bit right. So, we have different sensitivity levels that you can do in there. 1, 2, 3, half a degree, and then we also have an auto if you're in ABU mode. Because it knows the distance, it can make it less sensitive up close and more sensitive the further away you're going to shoot. We have options for MOTAC timeout settings, hard timeout settings, battery saver mode. Essentially all that does is if you have that on, it will turn off the blue LED when once the battery gets down below a certain power level. And the blue LED is on this power select ring. All that the blue LED does is notify you that you're bonded to a rifle scope, and if you range a target, it will flash quickly just to let you know that you're getting a new ballistic solution. So the reticle also does a little sequence. It takes about 1/3 of a second, so it shouldn't hold anyone up, but it just notifies the shooter that it's got a new ballistic solution. As soon as a ballistic solution is inputted into the rifle scope, it will stay in there until you have until you range something different, or you turn the rifle scope off. So, and then the last setting that you have in here is kinetic. This is it's a kind of a blend of two words, ethics and kinetic energy. So what you can do here is you can set a threshold. If you're like, okay, I'm shooting red stag, I want to have at least 1,700 foot-pounds of energy at the target. You can input that, and then as soon as you range a target, if it's less than that, it's a little bit too far, the scope will notify you. And it does two pretty quick flashes, and then it stays solid for 2 seconds, and then 2 quick flashes, stays solid, so on and so forth. We're not taking away the option for the user to shoot still, but we wanted to let them know you might want to get a little bit closer to take a little bit more ethical shot. So, and that is pretty much how you configure everything. So really the main thing, pairing, bonding, and then setting up your profile, and then off you go. You range a target and it will light up a dot for you. If you're getting quite a bit of wind, like we might have this afternoon, you can light up wind dots, and what you're going to do with the wind dots is you're going to bracket the target. So you'll have an elevation hold, and then you'll have a wind hold, and then you have to aim out kind of slightly off your vertical stadia to compensate for the wind. Questions?
What's the light transmission?
Light transmission, we're right around 80%. We do lose some because of the reticle,
Yeah.
but we are working on it too in our kind of our second round of BDX products that we're already working on. But we're around 80% total light transmission through there. Has everyone here shot long range before, or has anyone not? Don't be shy.
I think they're all fairly
Yeah, it will be.
good shooters. Hopefully.
Yeah, it will be a treat if you're not used to shooting that far. So hopefully the system makes it nice and simple for everyone.
Questions? We all want to have a shot.